Hey everyone, it's Matt Crevin with Talk Shop, and I'm happy to bring on another guest as part of my industry professional interview series. Today I'm joined by Jason Mayden, and before I bring him on to say hello, Jason and I first met, I think it was maybe 10 or 11 years ago. You were in a graduate program at Stanford, Jason. At the same time, I think you were still at your role with Nike, Senior Global Design Director of Brand Jordan. Um, so first of all, let me see if I've got some history right, and then I'll say, by the way, nice to see you and welcome to the show.
Yep, history is correct.
All right, I've got a crack staff of one. I've got to at least aim to try to be accurate the best I can. No, we initially met, like I said, 10 or 11 years ago, and are we tight friends? No, but I enjoy seeing what you do. You're in a way, I don't want to pat you on the back or make it feel like it's like stroking your ego, but someone that I can always learn from. Let me just leave it that way. So I thought you'd be the perfect guest to share some insight to the college students, if you will, as it relates to what you've been through, what you continue to do, again, specifically face-to-face communication skills. So that being said, when did you, Jason, realize how important it was to be able to communicate to a wide variety of people with some clarity and some confidence?
Yeah, that is a wonderful question. I would say the revelation hit me right around the time I started studying industrial design. So my freshman year in college, when I realized that design is intended to ask the questions to serve humanity at its biggest and highest and most intentional level, which meant that I needed to know how to articulate, how to communicate, how to empathize and understand the needs of people that may be different than me. And that's when I realized that there's different forms of communication. There's body language, there's verbal communication. There's a lot of times we talk about energy. So there's what you bring to the table with your intention and your heart posture. So I started to look at communication not as linear, meaning I say something, you listen, but more as experiential, something we both have to feel is aligned with who we are. And then that led me down a path of understanding that communication at its level is the act of discussing, things that we find important, but at the foundation is trust. So I moved away from just talking to establishing trust so that when people heard me speak or they were around me, they knew I was coming from a very specific place. And this was something that took a lot of time. For a long time, I conflated character with reputation. I thought those were the same things. My reputation is what people know about me externally. My character is who I am when no one is around. And I wanted those two to be congruent. So I needed to be the person that I am behind the scenes in public so that people know when I speak or I say something, it's from a place of authenticity and consistency. Because for a lot of college students, they wonder well, a successful person isn't responding to me. I'm not worth their time. That's not true. The thing is, people who are busy and quote unquote successful, we have to de-risk who we communicate with. Because at a certain point, if you are in a situation where you're serving and you're open to helping and you're trying to articulate your points and your messages, it may come across the wrong way or may be used in the wrong way. So it's really about being around people who are consistent and somewhat predictable because it reduces the risk. And so communication consistency, I would say in a phrase, is the most important part of learning how to grow from that stage of being a student to being a leader to eventually being someone that can empower other leaders.
There was a lot right there to unpack, and I'm not going to unpack it all because I'm just going to let it speak for itself. But there's a couple of things that I want to obviously pick up on. Earning people's trust and maybe how you do that. You mentioned not just by talking to people, and I always tell college students, look, talking is the easy part.
Yep.
That's basically just sharing what you already know. Yep. Listening is the hard part. And if I always say, hey, be careful. If you listen to someone, you actually might learn something. So you mentioned a lot there, and I'm not going to, like I said, unpack all that, but I love it. It's all spot on. And we may not share a whole lot in terms of our cultural backgrounds, the experiences we've had, but we do share one thing. Let me know if this quote sounds familiar. I'm going to loosely paraphrase this and maybe butcher it, but we'll have fun with it. But my goal at Talk Shop is to really help develop the students, the emerging students, if you will, the next generation of the workforce, not necessarily to fix broken adults. Does that quote sound familiar by stretch?
Yep, 100%.
That's your quote. And it rings true because that's, in a way, that's exactly what I do. And that's what Talk Shop's all about, is to, again, help that next generation to have them truly understand why it's important to have this skill set. So, Jason, that being kind of another little bit of context, is there one or two experiences that you've had, perhaps early on, whether you want to use Nike as an example or something prior to that or after, that's fine. But where you asked to network with someone, or maybe you were in an interview, and the way you handled yourself, it worked well, or perhaps there was something you learned from that. Maybe it's code for it didn't work out, but you learned something from it.
Yep.
I'll let you decide if you want to do the networking when you were networking with someone, or if you were actually in an interview. What was it that brought you some success?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my interview process with Nike, which was my dream job. I think a lot of students have benefited from the sacrifices of their ancestors, and so they're able to get a job that is their dream. Some people who may be first generation, they say, hey, I have to just get a stable job. And so depending on where you are in your journey, you'll understand where I'm coming from. There may be some students who are like, look, my parent wants me to be a doctor because it's a safe career and makes a lot of money. And I get that. Mm-hmm. You know, my parents, you know, they were the ones who sacrificed. My dad worked in factories. My mom worked in real estate for a little bit. And so I was able to have the privilege of pursuing my dream. So I do want to set the context. It is a privilege to say you want to pursue your dreams. It's not as accessible as some people think. So I don't ever want to come across without acknowledging my privilege. My parents didn't have a lot of means. We grew up on the south side of Chicago, but what they gave me was permission to pursue something that, you know, seemed outrageous, which was to be a footwear designer at Nike. So when I finally got my chance after multiple times of being rejected to sit in front of people and interview, the thing that I didn't worry about was if I was, you know, not supposed to be there. I had felt completely prepared because in my mind, I had the conversation 1,000 times. This is what I'm going to tell them, and this is what I want them to know about me so they can talk about me when I'm not in the room. I didn't know how to describe it at that moment, but I had this idea in my head that I was telling myself that they're going to hang up the phone and they're going to try to recap who I am. And I have to make sure that I give them the rumors I want them to spread about me. I got to plant certain seeds. I got to let them know there's 3 things about Jason that's real: my work ethic, my passion, and my understanding of youth culture. I kept telling them that I'm a hard worker, I'm passionate, and I care about youth culture, the future of your business. And so the recruiter, she didn't really hear anything about Jason was drawing pictures really well. I know a lot about sneaker culture. I basically said, look, I've studied your business. Your business is heavily dependent upon youth. I can help with that. Here's how I want you to describe how I can help. And at the time, I wasn't as articulate. I wasn't as polished or refined, but my intention was there. She understood what I was trying to say. So, you know, there's no such thing as the perfect pitch. The honest pitch is the perfect pitch. I was just honest. I said, her name is Miss Lisa Olivier. I said, Miss Olivier, I don't know all the words to describe what Nike does because I've never worked there. I may not have all the skill sets. I may not have all of this, but I can tell you what I am. No one will outwork me. No one will go to the lengths that I'll go to get the insight to truly help the athlete get better. And I just kept telling them, like, hey, this is who I am, the real Jason, before we talked about my work. As I got older and I got into negotiations with large corporations or for promotions or for investment, I took that same mindset of proactively telling my narrative and I turned it into what I call eliminating the way people can tell you no. And it's an act of introspection. I need to know my strengths and weaknesses better than my competition does. It's a sports mindset. If my competition knows I can't go to my left, they're going to force me to my left every single time. So It's the same thing as you get older. If you don't have the humility to say there are things I don't know, there are things that I can be better at, and you don't have a proactive strategy to address it up front, then someone's going to use that or leverage that to give you an excuse for why you can't have this opportunity. So I just use that unpolished, unrefined, authentic, honest conversation and put it into a system where I said, what's true about Jason? Because I'm living in my own experience inside of my own mind. And that, you know, what can be used about my weaknesses for someone to say, no, you're not ready for this opportunity, or no, we're not going to invest, or no, we're not going to do a deal. So really it's just about, I do that inventory constantly to this day, and I try to eliminate the way people can tell me no by proactively addressing my areas of need and my areas of growth and my areas of weaknesses. And I surround myself with people who have strengths in those areas. I don't have to be good at everything. I just have to be smart enough to know someone who is good at that thing. So that's what I learned from that internship moment. And I've carried that learning through and that practice through my entire career.
And let's just stick with Nike just for a minute. And I know you've done so many other wonderful things, but there's just one other bit about Nike. And for those that want to learn more about Jason and his background, it truly is inspiring and quite amazing. We'll leave that to go, search on YouTube on their own. It's out there, and I encourage everyone to do it, because you will be inspired. But I'm not going to unpack all of that here. But I do want to just bring Nike back into the mix just for one element, because look, in terms of my humble research, you've done everything from the initial sketch design to getting it to be retail ready. And that's probably not the right way to phrase it, but I think people will get that. But I had an experience briefly, and I know that you did too. Getting the opportunity to work with a boyhood idol in a way, and being in the same locker room with Joe Montana in my 49er experience. You, and I'm not comparing Jordan and Montana, but the first time that you were working with Michael Jordan, and holy smokes, he's in the room. You mentioned, hey, you got to be the best version of yourself. You've got to be, let the authenticity show. That's all fine and well until Jordan walks in the room. What did you learn? How did you handle yourself? And what did you learn from that experience the first time that you're in the same room?
Oh man, first time I was in the same room was my first day at work on accident. So I got to Nike's campus, and at that moment, this was 2001, they didn't necessarily have a structure for how design interns were kind of onboarded into the company. And so it was like, hey, here's the rallying cry from Mr. Phil Knight. Here's the corporate video. Here's your packet. Here's the name of your manager. Okay, now walk to your desk. Figure out where your desk is at. And I'm like, all right. So I have my map. I'm walking around. I get to the Jerry Rice building. Coincidentally, Jordan Brand was in the Jerry Rice building.
Right.
And I go up on an elevator. I'm looking at the map to find my desk, and the door opens up. And we had just heard this long speech about, how Nike is against people wearing, hard bottom shoes. Like, hey, look, we're a sneaker company. Don't dress up. Like, be of sport. I open the door on the elevator, and I look down and I see two beautiful pairs of Italian dress shoes. I'm like, they just said don't wear dress shoes. I look up, it's Michael Jordan and Larry Miller, the president of Jordan Brand. And I'm nervous. I'm so nervous. I tried to close the elevator door, but I pressed the wrong button. I pressed the button to open the door. So it was doing this weird kind of like bouncing back and forth. And Michael laughed. He asked me, are you the intern? So he knew I was going to come. They were doing a sneaker launch. He knew I was going to come, knew I was from Chicago. I'm like, yes, sir, I'm the intern. And he was like, well, how did you get here? And so I told him, I walked over from the Prefontaine building to the Jerry Rice building. He said, no. How did you get here to Jordan? You're from the south side of Chicago. Like, what is your story? And in that moment, I realized, like, this may be the only chance I get to tell Michael Jordan to his face how his work ethic inspired me. And I wasn't going to waste it being a fan. I came there and I said, Michael, this is who I am. This is what I care about. But I'm not here because I want to be like you. I want to beat you. I want to be the you of what I do. I'm not here to be your fan. I'm here to be your peer. And I was like, I didn't know what came over me, but I had this wave of confidence. Like, if this is the only chance I get to tell this man that he's inspired me to push myself beyond my limits, then I need to let him know I'm not here to worship him. I'm here to add to this legacy. I'm here because I've worked my butt off and I deserve to be here. That's why I'm here. And he was just like, he did the Michael look, just the head nod, and conversation goes on, and he, basically I asked him for some advice, and I'm like, how do I survive? How do I grow? And he basically turns me around because he was late for his flight. And he's like, don't F up. And he makes this face like, don't F up. But he didn't say it out loud, but he mouthed it, and I saw his lips. And I'm like, oh my God, like, did Michael Jordan threaten me or did he encourage me? But what was beautiful was as we grew in our relationship, the thing he told me he respected about me was that I wasn't afraid of his celebrity. I saw myself as someone that had, something in me where I felt that I was supposed to be there. Because Michael isn't a person that wants to be worshipped. He respects work ethic. Like, he respects hard work. And when I graduated from grad school after Stanford, he wrote me a letter and was like, you got there through hard work. Like, that's amazing when your hero is acknowledging, like, look, man, you don't have to see me as a fan. I'm a regular human with a abnormal work ethic. That's the difference between me and someone else. And I shot my shot, man, and thankfully it landed well, But when you meet your idols, people have to realize they're humans, and after a while, they live in an abnormal reality where everything is perfect everywhere they go. The food is the right temperature, the water is the right temperature, the room isn't messy, everything is so curated, they don't have a chance to feel normal. So when someone talks to them normally, as a person, it's kind of refreshing. And at that moment, I didn't know I was supposed to worship him. I was just like, you asked the question, I'm gonna answer it. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I'm a blue collar Midwest guy. You asked me how I got here. I'm gonna tell you, I bust my ass. I mean, I worked hard. Like this is why. So it was done with respect. It was done with humility, but I did not lessen myself to make him feel that I was worshiping his celebrity. I told him, I feel that there's something in me that I need to invest in, I need to grow with, but I'm not going to belittle myself, because of your legend.
That's great stuff. And whether it's in the business world, whether it's in the athletic world, whether it's in the media world, I learned that a very similar lesson. Look, check your fan hat at the door. You belong here. Just consider yourself a colleague, a peer, because they don't want you to be a fan. They'll just show you the door. So I'm sitting here saying, and I agree everything you said. I'm not going to repeat it. I lied just a moment ago, Jason. Before that question, I said that was my last Nike question. I lied to you. I've got one more because. And anyone that, again, I encourage you to go look up Jason and some of the videos he's done. They're out there and they're wonderful to watch. But the Nike and the number on the shoebox, that whole bit, I'm not going to go through it. But there's a question that I want to ask that came from that. And that is, look, you were persistent as all get out. You called the 503 number and you got through, and whatever that, the story is, it evolved. My question out of that is, when someone is approaching you now, you're who you are in today's world, either to network with you, informational meeting, or if it's a legit interview, whatever the case might be. Let's just use this for example. This one wants to network with you and they don't know you, but they're trying to get you. What is the right balance? Because college kids ask me this all the time. I want to get your opinion. Pest versus persistence. Thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the difference between a pest and someone who's persistent is all in how they approach you with the very first question. If you don't know what you're trying to do and you haven't given yourself the time to at least structure the conversation you're hoping to have, then I'm not going to waste my time. It's like you have to first show that you respect yourself enough to show up with at least a targeted question to ask me. But the people who reach out like, hey, I just want to talk. It's like, about what? Well, I just kind of, I feel like I just want to connect with you. It's like, no, you need to be very specific about, hey, I want to talk about this thing and I just want to take a few minutes of your time. I respond all day long to people who do that. And it's so much so I've given people a script to follow. I tell them, send me a direct message, send me a link to your portfolio, and send me a 1-minute voice message through DM on Instagram about what you specifically want me to give you feedback on. So I eliminate the fear of them saying the wrong thing by showing them, here's how you approach a person that you want to network with. You always have a specific ask, make it time bound. Say, I only need 15 minutes of your time. Anybody can spare 15 minutes. And then 2 weeks after you talk to them, follow up and tell them how the advice they gave you actually worked out. I tell everyone, if you don't follow up with me and tell me if my advice worked, then I never know if I should keep giving that advice or not. I need feedback. And that shows me that the person was listening and that they care enough and that they don't see me as being, up here. They see me here because they come back to me and say, I tried what you told me. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't. So those are the indicators that this is a person who cares about their career, and they may not have the right answer, but they're not going to stop until he or she gets the right answer.
There is something to be said about nurturing a relationship, right? I get into that when I work, one-on-one in my career coaching with my college student clients. I said, look, when just almost exactly what you said, when you connect with those that have helped you, stay in touch with them. It doesn't have to be every week, every month, every now. Let them know, hey, that advice you shared with me, I'm putting that to use. Just wanted to stay in touch. Thanks again, and look forward to maintaining connection with you. Stay in touch, nurture that relationship, because you never know when you want to withdraw after that person. So anyway, that was good. Because there is a fine balance, I think, to try to impart some wisdom. To be dedicated is one thing, to be persistent is another, but you don't want to cross that line of being pest, maybe not the right word, but I think you got the gist of it. Hey, Jason, I want to ask you one last question. I like to ask everyone that comes on. This question is kind of the last bit, and for you, I've been waiting because I'm curious as to how you're going to handle it. You've been inspired by a lot of people. You've shared one example, and I know firsthand that there's a lot of people that are inspired by you, by what you've been able to do, by your work ethic and by your dedication. What inspires you when someone comes in to meet with you? Again, whether it's a networking conversation, a meeting, an interview, meaning what captures Jason Mayden's attention?
Oh man, that's a great question.
That's why I get paid the big bucks, man.
Yeah, man, I think the people that I get excited about to support, because I don't like using the word help because it assumes that somehow you can't do it yourself, but kind of catalyze and support are the people who are super passionate about what they're working on or what they want to work on. Because I get excited when they're excited. Because I tell all the people that I mentor, my job is not to keep you as my mentee. My job is to create a network of peers. So you're a peer in progress, not my mentee. I'm hopefully giving you enough jewels so at some point you are in a professional position where we're in a room together at the same level. Because if I'm constantly growing and you're my mentee and you're staying here, then am I really mentoring you, or am I keeping you in place so that I feel more valid with my position or my station in life? That's not my goal. I want to mentor enough people so when I walk into a room, the people running the show are people that I met on the way up. Because who knows what happens to my career? I don't know. I may have to at some point rely on one of these young people I mentor to get a job. So I treat everyone as peers in progress. And when I see they're passionate about something, whether it's the craziest idea in the world, I get excited. So when they come to me and they say, Jason, I got this idea. It might be crazy. I say, stop. It's not crazy. It's not crazy. What is it? They tell me, then I'm like, okay, here's what we can do. And I get excited off their energy. So don't think that being energetic and being passionate is a negative thing. Also, don't think that being quiet and reserved is a negative thing, because it all comes down to context. In some cultures, showing emotion may not be a good thing to someone that they believe is hierarchical, the hierarchy doesn't allow them to challenge authority. So they may say, Jason's so experienced, I can't come to him with passion. It may be disrespectful. So please understand, I get the cultural orientation between different people from different backgrounds, different worlds. But however you show up with purpose, because that's what I'm going to sense in your words is the purpose and intention. And that's what excites me, because I can work with that. I can work with that. I can feed that purpose. I can feed that intention when you want to give up on yourself. But if you don't have it, then I can't give it to you. You gotta be passionate about something.
And that baseline passion, yeah, of course, that I don't want to say it goes without saying, but then the next step is they've got to be able to articulate that to you. And they may not have the chops quite yet to do that. So if that's the case, and this is my little final wrap up, if that's the case where you see they've got the passion, and that's what you just said captures your attention, is when someone's passionate about something, but they maybe need some guidance or maybe need some coaching from you or from me, from someone on how can they best verbalize, how can they articulate who they are, their own brand. I always say, look, you've got to promote yourself because no one else is going to do it any better than you. So is that a fair question to ask you? What would you say when someone says, look, how do I articulate who I am when I don't really even know yet?
Yeah, man, I literally am working through this now with 3 young people that I'm mentoring online. And what I tell them is the job isn't to discover who you want to be. It's to discover who you don't want to be, right? You take away the things that don't excite you. Take away the behaviors you see in other people that you don't want to follow. Like, man, that person is rude and arrogant. I don't want to be like that. So it's easier to eliminate the stuff you don't want to be. And that kind of gives you a beginning point. And that's what I start with. If a person can't articulate themselves and their passion, because I was there at one point, I help them reframe. I just try to listen to what they're saying, and then I provide an alternative. I take a yes and approach. Yes, and what if you thought about it this way? I don't discount their thinking. I don't tell them their thinking is wrong, because I don't know if they've been verbally abused as a child. I don't know how feedback is going to hit them emotionally. So I'm very cautious with the words I choose because they frame the reality. So I help them look at what they're saying out loud and give them a reframe. So one person in particular came to me and was talking about how they didn't want to be trapped in a certain corporate setting that was belittling to women. And they work in a sport environment. And it's a young man, and he was very sensitive to this. He said, I don't know how to navigate this. I'm new in this. I don't know what to do. And I explained to him, I said, okay, how did that behavior make you feel? Let's talk about that. He's like, oh man, I felt confused. I said, okay, what confused you about that feeling? I was confused because I thought that if you were in leadership that you shouldn't talk to people this way. I said, there it is. That's the word thing we can work with. You confused their title with the behavior of being a leader. I said, the person has the title, but they don't have the behaviors. Now we can break down what the behaviors of leadership are. Let me explain to you what a leader is, because what you gave me was an example of a person who had a title, but they weren't a leader. So you were disappointed because you thought that title was going to come with the behavior, and it didn't. So and then I helped them reframe. And then walking him through this, he was like, man, I get it. Because he felt so much anxiety. Like, I don't know how I'm going to speak up. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this because my boss is not the person I thought he was. So it's stuff like that. I try to get them to reframe and really think about what's at the root of your discomfort. And then we go from there.
Sounds great. Hey, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything that you would like to promote? Maybe it's a blog, it's a website, anything. If someone wants to track you down, whatever you're comfortable and are willing to share, I want to give you the opportunity to make sure we put that out there.
Yeah, man. Just, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. LinkedIn is just my name, at Jason Mayden, JasonMayden. Pretty easy to find. I share a lot of stories on there. I mentor a lot of people through Instagram and Twitter. I try my best to be a servant when I can to help people feel inspired and encouraged, because I feel very blessed to say that I'm a kid to grow up to live every one of my dreams. And I just want to see as many people have that opportunity as possible.
Absolutely. I'm just going to nod in a complete agreement. Listen, Jason Mayden, I appreciate you taking the time. For those that are watching, you enjoyed this and found some value, which I don't know how you couldn't. Please feel free to share this video with others. Or if anyone wants to reach out to me direct at Talk Shop, the website is right on your screen. And Jason, thank you again for taking so much time and sharing the insight that you have and sharing it with others.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt.